sitting in the pimp chair. I never thought I would unveil this chair for the general public, but tonight is the night because I literally have nothing else to sit in. This is my office at my new house. I have a beautiful display here of the national championship Mississippi State baseball in happier times. And I have this extravagant chair that is over 15 years old. And we're going to talk Mississippi State sports. Does it really matter what the setting's like? Let's talk Mississippi State sports. I could be sitting outside on the porch. I could be, probably wouldn't do it on the toilet, but, maybe the living room or something. Does it matter? If we're talking Mississippi State sports on a rainy Wednesday night, it's a good night. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk Mississippi State sports. The baseball team is almost done with another miserable season. There's been some good things going with Mississippi State men's and women's basketball. So plenty of things to talk about if you guys want to do it. Once again, thank you for coming over, watching this YouTube, sitting through this nonsense with me every now and then. We haven't been on here in a while, so I wanted to get back on here and try to get back into a groove a little bit. With baseball season and high school sports and stuff, it's been a little bit tougher to get to do these every single week, but we're going to continue to try to get back on track there. So again, you have this comment section over on the right side. I assume that's how it is for everybody else. That's how it is for me. Drop your questions, drop your comments in over there. We'll talk about it shortly. And we'll have a good old night tonight, wherever you may be. All right, so what's happened since the last time we talked? A lot, actually. Mississippi State fired its pitching coach, Scott Foxhall, and I guess we'll lead off with that. The Bulldogs have been absolutely miserable on the mound this season under Scott Foxhall in his fourth or fifth year. And the last two seasons have just been awful. And this is a guy who won National Assistant Coach of the Year just 2 years ago when Mississippi State won the national championship. I thought the run that they had in Omaha with Will Bednar, Landon Sims, Preston Johnson, Houston Harding, I thought they managed that season perfectly. I thought the pitching staff was among the best things on that team for Mississippi State. And then it just completely just rolled down the hill on fire. I don't know what happened with everything, but everything just kind of went to crap for Mississippi State under Scott Foxhall. Tough decision for Chris Lemonis because he was really close to Foxhall, and they've had some really good moments, and Scott Foxhall has been good at Mississippi State at times, but the last 2 years have just been beyond repair, I think, for Foxhall, and everything has finished for him. Wish him the best, obviously. You never like to see that happen. These coaches are people just like you and I. They uproot their families from time to time. It's a tough thing, but this is big business. College baseball at Mississippi State is really big, and you just could not continue to go down that path. Now, this past weekend was pretty bad still for Mississippi State, but I'm not sure what we could have expected with the firing of the pitching coach. I think things are just there's no way back from this season. Mississippi State's going to have to really start over there with the pitching staff. So there was really nothing that you could see last weekend that is going to really improve over the last 3 weeks. So no more pitching coach for Mississippi State, and that means they're looking for a new coach to coach the pitchers. Chris Lemonis said this past week that they're going to go after the biggest names in college baseball. We'll see what kind of reaction they get there. And of course, with the way everything's been going for Mississippi State, the last few weeks, there's still an opportunity for Zach Selman to make a change at the head coaching position with Chris Lemonis. I think Lemonis has got to show some signs of life here in the next 2 weeks. This past weekend was just putrid for Mississippi State. They couldn't defend. They looked like they had never played baseball before on Saturday. That was really discouraging to see. Mississippi State missing fly balls, a lot of errors in the outfield and the infield. They didn't show us a ton of signs of life at the plate. They were just bad all the way around. If that continues to roll down the hill a little bit, Chris Lemonis' job is not safe. There's a lot of unrest within this fan base. And there's a lot of unrest with the people that put some big money on the line in baseball. So I think Chris Lemonis has got to show that they're moving into the right direction over the next 2 weeks. I don't think his job is solidified for next year by any means, just judging by the fan base and what I'm hearing. He's going to have to show some signs of life over the next couple weeks, and it's going to be tough. They got LSU this weekend. They got a Texas A&M team that's starting to come together. That's a team that went to Omaha last year. It's just going to be really difficult, but we'll see what happens. And then for moving over to basketball a little bit, Mississippi State, the women's team, Sam Purcell, has picked up 3 transfer portal players that were all conference players, top 20 players. If you go by the 247, I guess it was just one guy that put out a ranking. We don't really rank players, but he put out a ranking of the top 25, and Mississippi State landed 3 top 20 players out of the portal. Lauren Park Lane from Seton Hall, a point guard that averaged over 20 points a game last year, was one of the best players in the Big East. Darian Rogers, who comes from DePaul, who was second-team All-Big East, averaged, I think, over 14 points a game last year. And then second-team All-SEC forward Aaron Barnum, who was the leading scorer at Arkansas last year. 3 really good additions to that team, and I think that's going to be a team that's built for success next year, a team that's built for a run. There's not a ton of excuses there for Sam Purcell this year. I think he's going to have a really good roster. And then Chris Jans got his first transfer portal addition on Wednesday in West Virginia center Jimmy Bell. That's a guy that you're bringing in to hopefully back up Tolu Smith, and we're still waiting on Tolu Smith's decision. We'll talk a little bit about him. I know we have some questions about him. So good addition there. I think he wants one more guy to the portal. So not a ton of spots to fill for Chris Jans. They have a lot of that roster returning from last year, and it should be a pretty good team there as well. So a lot of excitement on the basketball side. So having said that, we will move on over to questions and comments. And we'll start with Michael Starr, who says that he saw on 247 that the batting stats in SEC play dropped from 270 to 253 from last year to this year. And he's heard all year about how good our offense is, but is it just top-heavy with Kellum, DJ, and Hines? My thoughts on the offense have been that I just feel like the pitching has just trickled down to it. I think this offense has the potential to be one of the best offenses in the SEC, and I think they've shown that potential this year. But I think over time, you keep losing games. You're not getting the pitching that you need. You feel like you're having to press a little bit to score a lot of runs. I think that we take that for granted a little bit of what that pitching can do to your offense. I think we talk about the pitching and the offense separately, but in many ways they work hand in hand. A lot of times, pitching can be more comfortable when it knows that they have the offense behind them to kind of carry the weight a little bit. They can sit back there and be a little more comfortable. And then when they don't have the offense, they're pressing a little bit on the mound and defensively. I think everything works together. If you have a pitching staff that you feel like can come out there and shove it and that can give you 6 or 7 shutout innings or something like that, your offense is able to relax a little bit. I don't think Mississippi State's offense has been able to relax. I think they've had to go up there in the first inning and start pressing right away because they feel like they have to get a bunch of runs. So while the numbers have dropped, I think we have to look a little bit deeper at that and see just how much that offense has had to press and change their mindset. I think the offense, top to bottom, the potential of it is among some of the best in the SEC. We've seen it. Hunter Hines is having a not quite yet a historic year, but it's a pretty darn good year. It's the best season that Mississippi State's had from a home run hitter since Brent Rooker won the Triple Crown. And you're looking at a guy right now that's moving into some elite categories in a single season at Mississippi State with some great players that have come along. Rafael Palmeiro, Bruce Castoria, Connor Powers, Brent Rooker, guys that have done really great things at Mississippi State. Hunter Hines is putting up home run numbers that are besting a lot of those players. Will Clark. So you got a guy that is going to be pushing Will Clark, Rafael Palmeiro, Bruce Castoria, guys like that for one of the best seasons ever. As a home run hitter, Mississippi State's probably going to have a losing record. Dakota Jordan has shown some amazing things this year for a true freshman. Ross Highfield's had some really good moments this year. Kellum Clark has seen his batting average jump up tremendously. I think this offense has been better in many respects than last year, maybe not in the batting average categories, but I think it's been a little more consistent at times. They're just running up against a pitching staff that cannot hold a lead or cannot keep a game where it needs to be. And I think that's been the biggest problem for Mississippi State offensively. This past weekend, the offense was a problem. They didn't help out the team at all against Arkansas. But at some point, you just have to say, the weight of this season is just kind of wearing these guys down. I just don't know. It just feels like at this point that there's just not a whole lot of energy left in this program, at least for this year. Tucker Medlin, where would you put the odds of State getting Jalen Sellers? That's the guy from Ball State, right? I think that's correct. He is on. Let me make sure. I don't want to be an idiot. Yeah, that's the Ball State shooting guard. He's on campus, I believe, right now. Paul Jones does our men's basketball recruiting, by the way. I'm not, it's not that I'm not like tuned into it, because I am. It's just that Paul knows a lot more than me with the men's basketball. I handle mostly women's. But I think that they got a good shot. The main thing with Jalen Sellers, I think, is the fact that he's got that Montgomery, Alabama tie. And Mississippi State's had a ton of success recruiting with George Brooks over the years, over there at Carver High School and then Montgomery, Alabama. It's kind of like, whoever they want over there, they've been able to get. And this is a guy this is a big recruitment here with Jalen Sellers, because you got to get a shooter in this class, and he shot over 40% from three-point range last year. Was a good scorer for Ball State. You need a guy that can come in here and knock down shots, because you just did not have that last year. That was a huge miss for Mississippi State in the portal. You thought you were getting that with Eric Reed, and it just didn't happen. But they didn't have anybody that could come in there and knock down shots, and teams just kind of clogged the paint, gave them those shots. State shot among the best percentages in the country as far as the quality of shot. And they were the worst three-point shooting team in the SEC and one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country. So they were getting great looks. They just couldn't knock them down. This team has to have guys that can do that. They need Jalen Sellers to come in here and do that. They need Trey Fort to come out of junior college and do that. They need Josh Hubbard to do that for them out of this recruiting class. Those guys there's going to be a lot riding on those players to try to get Mississippi State past that play-in game, the bubble, all that stuff, into being a team that's solidified themselves in the NCAA tournament, competing inside the SEC and competing for a run in the NCAA tournament. And I think this team's capable of doing that, but Sellers is kind of their last piece. If they can get Tolu Smith back and you get Sellers in here and you have the guys that you have, then it's kind of game on at that point. You feel good about what you have in a roster, and you feel like you can take what you did this past season and elevate that, because you have offensive pieces that can do some big things for you. So we'll see what happens. He's on campus right now. It's one of those deals where you would love to get him committed while he's here, and you don't have him go take other visits, because that's when things start to get tougher on you when recruiting the transfer portal. You try to get in, lock those guys down, and move on. So we'll see if they're able to do that. Jesse Brewer, any news on Tolu coming back? Yeah, right now it's just kind of a wait and see. I think that Mississippi State's going to. I don't think he's going to go pro. I think they're going to survive that. And right now I feel good about it. But from what I'm hearing, there's been several schools that are trying to get him to enter the transfer portal, and that's what you have to deal with. I don't believe that Tolu is seriously entertaining that. I think Paul reported that on the board too. He feels okay about where things are right there, but there are schools that are going to push for Tolu when they miss out on their guys and they don't get their guys back to campus. They're going to try to get him in the transfer portal. That's just the nature of this game right now. Everybody's tampering. Everybody's utilizing their NIL. It's no longer really cheating when you're paying players, because you can do it through NIL at this point, but I mean, that's what's happening is you're offering guys a bunch of money. But I do know Mississippi State has a very competitive NIL package in line for Tolu Smith if he's able to come back to school. And by competitive, I mean it will be more money than he would make in the G League. It would be more money than he would make overseas. I mean, it's worth his while to come back to school. Mississippi State has made that a possibility, or the Bulldog Initiative, that is. So we'll see what happens. I feel good about Tolu at this point, but it's just you're kind of at his mercy right now. I mean, you don't really have an answer from him. You're waiting on him to make a decision. I think he might be going through some workouts or something. I don't know, but I expect him to play college basketball next year. I expect it to be at Mississippi State. Anything else would be kind of a shock at this point. 44 MSU. I don't know what the expectation is for the offense, but Tulu and Xavion look excited. Woody will have a big season. Yeah, I think those guys are really excited. I mean, there's been a lot of talk with people outside the program that it's a run-first offense. They're going to come out there and run the football 70% of the time or whatever. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think these skill position players know what this offense is all about. And again, I've said it over and over again, Kevin Barbay is going to fit his offense around the personnel. And it's also going to be the same thing with whoever he's playing. It's going to be a week-by-week basis. If you go really break down those numbers at App State, you'll see there's games where they threw the ball 50 times. I mean, there's games where they ran the ball 50 times. It's an offense that's predicated on what it sees from opposing defense, and they're going to get the balls to players that need the ball in certain situations. And we saw that in the spring game. I mean, there was a lot of things that left fans leaving, with, wanting more, but that's a spring game. They've just been, a couple of months into pushing the offense in there. You still got a couple other guys that you got to add back in the fall, and we'll see where things go from there. But I think this offense is going to be really good. I think they're going to be just as good, if not better, than the air raid from a statistical standpoint. And there's a few things that they got to kind of get together with the offensive line. They got to make sure they have the right pieces in place there. I like the skill position players. I like Will Rogers. I think it's going to be fine. Elvis, without naming names, I expect at least 10 baseball players to enter the portal after the season. What do you think? Probably so. I think there's you need some changes there. I mean, there's a lot of players that are going to need to move on. There's a lot of players that they need a new lease on life in their career. Mississippi State needs some new blood in here. They need some new players. And I'm sure there's some players that, with the changes that have already happened and possibly to come, if we'll see what happens with Chris Lamonis, there's some players that are going to want to go somewhere else because they committed to Chris Lamonis. So I expect a lot of new faces next year. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Bryce Hall, to be honest, you and Brian picked for my president as a baseball coach question was horrible. The clear number one answer is Teddy Roosevelt. Okay. Hey, well, I mean, why did you ask us, Bryce? Why do you ask us if you tell us our answer is terrible? You have the clear number one answer. Why are you asking us for the answer? I don't understand that. Jason, Jans needs a shooter. Yeah, well, that's what they're trying to get with Sellers, so we'll see what comes from that. Elvis again, is it too early to worry about these players committing to out-of-state schools in football? I thought with some of our new coaches, we have some more emphasis on those guys. It's still a little early. I mean, I can see the concern. If you want to be concerned, I completely understand it. It is kind of strange they haven't. The thing to me is that there's a lot of guys that you see Ole Miss is they have like some leans their way right now. They might not be committed, but you at least know like those guys look like they're leaning towards Ole Miss. I don't see a ton of guys like that for Mississippi State right now. Now, having said that, I think there's still a long way to go. I think there's still a lot of things that are going to happen over the summer. Mississippi State's going to have these camps. They're going to push guys for commitments. There's a lot of players that haven't announced yet that they, I think that it's just a little too early, but you would like to see a little more momentum for Mississippi State. That's kind of my opinion on it right now. That they should be showing some more signs of life, and at the same time, it's still a staff that's kind of getting acquainted. There's still some things that they have to get done on the recruiting trail, some relationships they have to build, and Ole Miss has, some of those relationships been built for the last few years. But I think State's going to be able to get a solid class together, but they do have some catching up to do. Bryce, but you expected better. Okay, I don't understand why you ask us a question, but you have the answer to it already. I don't know. This isn't school. You're not my teacher. If you don't like our answers, buddy, I don't know what else to tell you. Same to you, Richard. You know what? I don't need you guys coming in here and giving me a hard time. We're sitting in the pimp chair right now. We're in a cozy office studio. I don't need anybody's hard times. Okay? Let's have a good time in here. I don't want to get heated. I don't want to get upset. So let's just move on with our lives. Elvis, the way too early bowl projections on CBS has us in the Gasparilla Bowl. Interesting. We're being underestimated again, or is it the Leach to Arnett era? It's the fact that nobody outside of Mississippi State trusts Arnett right now. They just don't know. You have two new coaches. You have three. You have the head coach, you have the offensive coordinator, and the defensive coordinator. So I think that scares some people. Scare might not be the word. They have no skin in the game, but I think people just are a little skeptical of Mississippi State right now. I think the State's going to be much better than projections. They're what is it, the over-under 6.5 right now for wins? It feels like that's just a copy and paste job every year. What we do know is almost every single year Mississippi State outperforms what people believe they're going to be. And so that's what I'm going to choose to believe until the end of time. Mississippi State's going to outperform what the national experts believe. I don't think anybody would be excited about the Gasparilla Bowl either, by the way. But, I'm still sticking with 8 wins for State, and I could see 9. And that would outperform what people think, because right now Vegas says 6.5. Tom T, you think statistically we'll be the same in football? Rodgers will throw for roughly the same amount? No, I'm saying, I mentioned that earlier. I think they could be about the same. I mean, like from a production standpoint overall. Last year the offense wasn't just setting the world on fire. They didn't. Let's see what they did last year. They averaged. If they can pull it up. The rushing attack actually improved for them last year. They started to run the football a little more, and I thought that helped alleviate some of their issues. They averaged 32 points a game, which is pretty good. I think this offense can get into the 30s. The rushing attack's going to be significantly better, and the passing is going to go down, of course. There's no way they're throwing for 4,000 next year. But I think that they can throw for over 3,000. And I think that they could rush for what they rushed for last year. They rushed for just over 1,000 yards. I think they have the potential to have a 1,000-yard back. So you're talking about probably 2,000 yards rushing, 3,000 passing, or a little more. You're right at where you were last year, and to me that's pretty solid. They had their total offense was 5,108. So I think they can average close to 400 yards a game or more. I think they can average 30-plus points. I really believe this offense will be solid for them this year. Tom T, the logo is the Avengers logo. Big Marvels guy. Jason, can the JUCO pitchers committed really pitch? Yeah, I think so. Cam Schuelke, who was one of the last guys that got committed. I think he might have been the last guy that got committed. He's one of those that can just really pitch. I mean, he's not going to blow you away with the velocity or anything like that. But he can really pitch. He stays in the zone. He throws 3 or 4 pitches, and he's tough to pick up. I think he's going to be a good addition. Just skimming over Will Passeau, I think's had a good year at Pearl River. I guess that's how if I said his name, if I butchered it incorrectly, feel free to tell me. Who else is a JUCO pitcher? I'm rolling through the commit list right now. I guess that's it on this class. They'll probably get a couple more if I had to guess. You know, the junior college players with the transfer portal now just starting to kind of diminish a little bit. You used to rely on that a little more for guys that you could fill holes with, but those guys are really suffering, I think, from the fact that the transfer portal has gotten so prevalent, because you can go out and get a guy that's had a lot of success in the SEC or in the Power 5 or Group of 5, and you feel a lot better about them than you do about the JUCO guys. I kind of feel bad for those guys for kind of starting to get lost in the shuffle. And it's not just in baseball, it's in a lot of sports. But I think those two especially, they should come in and provide some good innings for you next year. Richard, how many pitchers are out with Tommy John? Lamona said 4 to 5. Well, right now you got 3 for sure. You've got Pico Khan, Stone Simmons, Brooks Auger. Who else? I guess that would mean that he's foreshadowing that there's more guys. I'm trying to look through here. Stone is still out, but he's at the tail end of his rehab. He could be good to go in a couple weeks, but I doubt they throw him at all. Brooks Auger, he's going to be ready to go by the fall for sure. Pico, that's the only ones that I can think of. So if he's saying 4 or 5 and they have a couple more that are out that we don't know about, that would not be good. So hopefully not. Elvis, is there any way we start Cade on Saturday versus Friday? It seems like if he pitches versus Skeens, you're sacrificing to a sweep. I just don't know. I don't know if it really makes a difference at this point. You could move up maybe Landon Gartman on Friday or Durangelo. I mean, you still do have an opportunity to get to Hoover if you win some games here in the next couple of weeks, but I just don't see it. It just feels like this team is kind of tailing down fast. Jesse, did we get another portal quarterback this summer? I doubt it. It is kind of scary behind Will Rogers if something ever happens to him. But I haven't heard of another portal quarterback. It looks like they have 3 or 4 spots left. And right now they've been recruiting defensive backs, wide receivers, offensive linemen, a running back. So I haven't heard of a quarterback of yet. But I mean, it wouldn't be the worst idea. You need to have somebody you can count on behind Will Rogers. Turkey Hunter. Hey, I think I got that correct. Any ideas on what's happening with Martavius Russell? I heard he was in the portal. Yeah, he just more playing time. Yeah, he entered the portal last week, I think. I think Paul reported that. Tom T, you think Lamonis is back or no? I mean, I hate to say one way or the other right now. I have not heard good things in the last couple of days for Chris Lamonis. But I don't know if anything is set in stone just yet. But, like I said earlier, he's going to have to show a ton of signs of life here in the next couple of weeks, because it was just not a good look last week. That the performance last week against an Arkansas team that was beat up and, they had been playing fairly well despite the fact they've had a lot of injuries, but State shouldn't have been swept that easily. I mean, they weren't in really any of those games. So you just didn't really see a whole lot of signs of life. And, the defense didn't look good. The offense was bad. Pitching was bad. It's been it's been a rough 2 years, to say the least. It's tough to go 2 straight years like this and expect everything to just kind of stay the same. I mean, this is a fan base that you guys do a lot for this baseball program. Y'all invest a lot of money, a lot of your time. There's a lot of money put into this program on a year-to-year basis. They've been recruiting fairly high each and every year as far as the recruiting rankings are concerned, which I don't know if you can put a ton into that, but it's all we got to really, judge these recruiting classes, and State's been right there in the top 10, top 15 regularly. So you should not be in this position. Mississippi State should never be in this position for more than a year. I mean, you're going to have your down years, but this has been rough. This has been really rough for Mississippi State. So, hopefully, it gets resolved, but I don't know. I don't know if there's any way back from this. So, all right, y'all. Well, it's been a good one. We might return the swag chair next week. We'll see what happens. But we'll probably get back on here next week and discuss some more baseball, basketball, whatever you guys want to talk about. We'll do it. But I appreciate you guys spending 30 minutes with me and talking some Mississippi State sports. I've enjoyed it. I really enjoyed talking to you guys, and thank you for your support. If you don't mind, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel just to help me out a little bit. And, of course, it costs you nothing. You'll just get an update every single time I'm doing one of these, or if I post a new video. We usually have post-game video on here if I'm able to get to the games, some other interviews, things like that. We'll have on the channel, so you can check that out, and it'll notify you every time one of those go up. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks again for spending some time with me on this Wednesday evening. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and I'll catch you down the road.